Did you ever stumble across something and think to yourself, there's got to be a story there? It happens to me, all the time. I love stories. They don't have to be long. They don't have to have a plot. In fact, it makes me happy if a story simply explains a small mystery or teaches me something new. Some people call this history. I heard my first story about the Croton Dam by accident. I came in the late winter to scout the lower river for trout fishing the following spring, and a group of sledders told me that the dam was the second largest hand-hewn masonry structure in the world. I remember standing there trying to imagine the time and effort it must have taken to set each of those stones by hand. I'd like to tell you that I came back to fish in the spring, but I didn't. The truth is, I didn't even think about the dam or the river again until several years later, when I met this man. He knows a lot of stories. He's lived on the Croton River at Doverkill Island for quite a while now. He and his wife Dorothy spent years exploring the Croton River.
In our conversation, maybe we asked each other, where does the Croton River begin? I said, I thought Vermont, and Dot said she didn't think it was that long. So the East Branch begins near Quaker Hill, up around Paulding, and the Middle Branch begins above Ludingtonville. The West Branch begins about a mile from the ski jump on Fonstock.
Dot and Ed loved the Croton so much that they recreated the entire lower river on their living room wall.
The first is the dam, as it was at that time. It and I were born at the same time, but I didn't see it then. Then below that is the bridge that goes across to the what is now called the Gorge Park. That bridge is out of proportion. I made it too big and didn't have it there for a long time. And then when Dot said, "Why don't you put the bridge back? It doesn't matter if it's out of proportions." Quaker Bridge then comes next, and the Quaker Bridge that's pretty authentic. And you notice that river station under the bridge. That's where they used to measure the height of the water at one time. Then after a Quaker Bridge comes a wide place in the river, which is Silver Lake. That was just a cable put across by boys. That's our boys put it across, and I just put it in. Just a rope, I think, that they hung on to get across. Then below that is the Van Cortlandt grist mill. They ground flour for the Revolutionary War there. High Bridge was there, and the circus was going from Peekskill to Osney. And all the circus wagons with lions in them and tigers and other vicious animals came down and went across the bridge. And then at the end of this long procession came the elephants. And the biggest elephant was in front. And when he came up and looked at that bridge, he shook his head. No, he was not going over that bridge. His trainer poked him in the ribs and everything, but he wasn't going over that bridge. And all the little elephants behind him shook their heads back and forth too, because they were going over if he wasn't going over. And that night, the bridge fell down completely. That's sort of my idea of it, but it is true that Washington's troops one winter, they built a bridge across there, and the abutments remain on each side now still. That bridge at one time was the only legal entrance to the rest of America from New York. The ferry house. Well, my connection with the ferry house was a Cornu who lived there. I guess I got acquainted with him just by walking down there. He, of course, was the great environmentalist. He was interested in the river and nature and canoes and all that kind of thing, and he often went paddling with a friend of his from Ossining. This friend would paddle up and they'd go out. I'd often see them together. One day I asked him, "What's your friend's name?" And he said, "I don't know. I never asked him." But he was a wonderful fellow.
Speaking of wonderful fellows, here's a story my 13-year-old son likes to tell about one.
You could be in the worst mood of your life, but if you go spend 5 minutes with Ed Rondthaler, all of a sudden you're happy.
Of course, it's a true story, though, and all mine are.